Our next storyteller is Dada Maheshvarananda, a yogic monk, activist, and author of 6 books. Dada blends spiritual wisdom with a passion for social change. He has traveled the world, leading workshops and seminars on activism and transformation, inspiring countless people along the way. Now based in Asheville, he serves as the director of the Proud Research Institute and is the president of the Asheville Storytelling Circle. His stories are more than just words. They are invitations to reflect, grow, and awaken to a greater purpose. Let's welcome Dada Maheshvarananda.
Good evening. Can anyone guess what my favorite color is? Let me tell you a story why I wear this unusual orange uniform and what it's been like. When I was 21, I moved to New Orleans and I got a job in the psychiatric hospital as an orderly. I read in a book that yoga is good for you. Back then, you have to understand, this is 1974. Only hippies and weirdos did any yoga or meditation. But I was a little bit of both, so I went. There was a free yoga class offered by Ananda Marga. I saw the notice at Tulane University. I went, I loved it. My body became more flexible. I was full of energy. The instructor gave us 2 important messages. He said, first, stretch but never strain, and second, practice every day. 50 years later, I'm still doing that. I also learned meditation for free then, and I started practicing twice a day. I started to change. I became a little more peaceful and calm. I became able to listen and connect with people better. I started to find more and more wisdom in the spiritual books I was reading. I lost interest in getting high with alcohol or drugs. No side effects with yoga. And I started to do social service too, feeding the homeless and teaching classes in prison of yoga. Back then, whenever I traveled, I hitchhiked. One time I was going across the Great Plains somewhere, and a driver left me at the rest stop at night. I put my sleeping bag on the grass. In the morning, when the dawn is breaking, I sat up. The enormous sky is a kaleidoscope of colors, changing every moment. Only one artist in the world can possibly do that. And you know, I thought, I think I'm 1,000 miles from any human being that I know personally. I didn't know too many people back then. But you know, I feel home. Ever since then, I always feel home wherever I go. The first benefit I got from meditation. Then I decided I'm going to become a monk. I was surprised because the idea just came to me. I think it came from somewhere outside. I had never considered that, but I knew immediately I would definitely do that. None of my friends believed me. They said, oh, it'll pass. Don't worry about it. Everybody thinks like that. No, really, I'm going to do it. Now, 2 years later, I finally flew to India. It was the first time to leave this country. And the moment I got off the plane, I was hit in the stomach with something called culture shock. Culture shock is when you go to a different country and everything's different. The people talk differently, they dress differently, they eat different food, they listen to different music and art and customs. They even think differently and have a different psychology. Now, different is not good or bad. It's just different. And I started to learn that everything has value. In India, they have a saying that the guest is God. And they taught me hospitality and generosity because the poorest people will share their food with you. In the training, I was nervous for 3 reasons. First, I knew I was going to spend the rest of my life in other parts of the world because that was the policy of the organization, the order I belonged to, Ananda Marga. And that's a problem because I've always had great difficulty learning languages. In school, I was a good student, and I failed foreign language in high school, and I failed foreign language, another one, in college. That's not very good for somebody who's going to spend his life in other countries. The second reason I was nervous was that the training center was this old country house near Varanasi. It had no electricity, no running water. There was a well in the back with a long rope on the bucket, and there were no toilets. We fertilized the fields. It was very ecological, actually. And the biggest thing was that I'm promising to be celibate for the rest of my life. Frankly, I don't know what I'm going to feel like tomorrow, what to speak of the rest of my life. But I started to realize there was a certain logic to this madness, apparent madness. I think we all want world peace, but I think we need to spend time with people from other countries and cultures to really build world peace. I think, too, that my time in the poverty of the training center means I'm comfortable wherever I go. I can go to any village or slum in the world. I'm comfortable. And being celibate, I can work 24/7. Relationships, you might have noticed, take time. They take a lot of responsibility, too. By not entering relationships, I can go anywhere I'm needed at any time to serve humanity. I'm given an orange uniform. Orange symbolizes service, sacrifice, and renunciation. So I do this all the time. And people stare at me all the time. My first posting was Indonesia. I take a boat from Singapore. I've got only $20 in my pocket, which is enough to go from the Tanjung Pinang, the first island there. There's a ship that would go once a week and take me deck class to Jakarta. When I get there, I find a teacher who feeds me and allows me to stay in his classroom for free as long as I teach English to his advanced students. No problem. But while I'm waiting for that weekly boat, I'm walking around and I see a little sign, Catholic Center. That's strange in this Muslim country. And I immediately feel I'm supposed to ask for advice. I don't know why. I go in and I get to talk to Father Rolf from Netherlands. His weathered face, I immediately felt he's the right person to ask. I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to do social work in Jakarta. What should I know? He said, I can tell you 3 things. First, learn the language so you can communicate with the people. Got it. Second, this is hard for my American priests for some reason. You should feel that this is your country. And third, love the people. Then again, if you love the people, you don't have to worry about the first 2. They'll take care of themselves. I thanked him. I left. I never forgot what he said. In every country I would go, people would sometimes ask, how do you like our country? I always answer, I love it here because the people are kind and friendly and generous. Strange thing though, wherever I go, I meet people who are kind and friendly and generous. I don't know how that works. In Philippines, I was there for 9 years. And after a while, I asked some people who had been in the States a long time, how about the difference in our cultures? And one guy had been there 10 years. He said, it's very cold there. Cold? You were in Southern California. Yeah. Not climate. People are cold. I worked in the post office, he said, for 10 years. People talk every day, very friendly. How are you? How was your weekend? Did you have a good time? Never once did any American ever invite me into their home for a meal. In Philippines, you have to invite friends to your home for a meal. That's just given. I went to Brazil next. I'd already been working 14 years in Asia and suddenly to another part of the world, another language. And it's tough. I'm trying very hard, but after just a month or so, I'm invited to give a speech at an interreligious gathering in a campaign against hunger. Wonderful. But there were going to be thousands of people there. So I wrote out my 2-minute little speech, got somebody to translate it, went the night before in Copacabana Beach when it's deserted and shouted it out to the waves, practicing. Well, when I get to the stage that night, the first act is Caetano Veloso, won many Grammys, a very famous Brazilian singer. I'm next. I walk up to the microphone, the spotlight. There are thousands of people, and I can't see them in the dark. I got my paper. I start out, good evening, boa noche. 2,000 people shout back, boa noche! Wow, I like this country. They have a word in Portuguese, saudade. It doesn't translate well. The worst translation is homesick. That's not it. You're longing for a place and you're longing for people. You miss people. I have saudade for Brazil. And I have saudade for all of you too. After 40 years, I suddenly came back to this country 8 years ago. And I experienced what many expatriates experience. It's called reverse culture shock. This country, if you haven't noticed, is the most competitive and individualistic country anywhere that I've been in. And what's also interesting is that, you know, I try to practice what I learned. I invite my friends to my house and I cook them a home-cooked vegetarian meal because I think it's important to build community. A problem that I think this country has, you may disagree with me, many Americans, I think, feel lonely. And because of loneliness, I think people try alcohol and drugs and sex and food. And I think in Asia, in Philippines certainly, people don't understand loneliness. They're in big families, big communities, lots of friends everywhere. 40 years I experienced culture shock from all the differences. But you know, I started to feel that actually all our differences were really all the same. There's a poem by T.S. Eliot. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to come back where we started and know the place for the first time. I find people who are kind and friendly and generous everywhere. I feel like a citizen of the world. And there's another American poet, Carl Sandburg, who said, there's only one man in the world, and his name is all men. There's only one woman in the world, her name is all women. And there's only one child, and its name is all children. I think I'm home with you on planet Earth. Thank you.
Well, let's give it another hand for Dada. If your hearts are not swollen right now with all this wisdom, come on, guys. Get it. My heart is super big right now. Thank you so much for that story, Dada. We're going to be taking a 5-minute break.